Hello and welcome to the Asian Games. Scott McIntyre coming to you from the Janoub Stadium in Qatar on an evening when Australia's Asian Cup campaign is at an end. I'm delighted to say I'm joined, I believe, for the first time on the show by ESPN's Joey Lynch here on the ground for ESPN. Joey, first of all, welcome to the Asian Game.
Long-time viewer, first-time caller, I guess. Long-time listener, first-time caller, whatever it is.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's hard to know. It's hard to know whether it's very disappointing, obviously, from an Australian perspective. So close to progression through to the last four. Congratulations to Korea. They did what they needed to do. Didn't stop going right to the end. Australia scored 1-0. And then you thought they were in control. They had so many chances after that. 3-4 really good chances. They didn't take those. They made a tactical switch, which we'll get into in a minute, which probably didn't help things either. And then I think almost as they did in the Saudi game, Korea's scored with pretty much the last kick of regulation time, took it through to extra time. Then, world-class free kick. What can you say from Son Heung-min? That was where it finished 2-1 to Korea. Just your thoughts, firstly, from an Australian perspective.
From an Australian perspective, you'd have to say that it's a heartbreaking circumstances, given that it felt like for so much of that game they got it right. Coach Graham Arnold, his Arnie ball stylings come in for a bit of stick back in Australia, but this was the type of game where Arnie ball works to a T. They were coming up against a Korean side which is full of technically high-quality players playing for Tottenham Hotspur, Son Heung-min, Wolves, Bayern Munich, all of these clubs, and Arnold set his team out to frustrate them. They were tight, they were compact, they defended as a unit, they pressed when they needed to, and by the end of the first half, the Koreans did have a goal disallowed for offside, a correct offside call, but they didn't have a shot, let alone a shot on target. And Australia had one goal. They could have had at least one more, probably should have had one more. Connor Metcalf will rue his missed opportunity in the first half. And really, even in the second stanza, the Koreans came out with a renewed sense of fury and fire, and Klinsmann talked about how they maybe have a mental block, about how they sort of only start to play with a bit of freedom after they go down a goal and they don't think about everything else. But even then, Australia had their chances. Mitch Duke, 2 gilt-edged chances, but it's then just the last, well, depending upon who you ask, I think a lot of observers would say around the last maybe 15 minutes after the 75th minute mark. The Socceroos themselves say pretty much the full 90 before it all went wrong, but Korea just refuses to die. I mean, their fans are calling zombie football. Son Heung-min refused to let them lose. They kept getting into the box, and in the end, they got their penalty when Lewis Miller brought down Son.
He hasn't really done much in the group stage. He's kind of come to light as the tournament progresses, as you would expect world-class players to do. I think, for me, one of the main talking points to come out of this is the tactical shift, deciding with your last substitution to bring an extra defender on, sacrifice an advanced player. You go to 5 at the back. That's an all-in gamble, right? I mean, you hold on and you look like geniuses. What happened? You cop a goal, you go to extra time, and you've got no plan B. And as we saw, things were compounded, obviously, with a red card as well. And then the plan B for the second half of extra time became throw the big guy on up front, kind of 1983 plan B style. But that was the gamble, wasn't it? That he gambled and ultimately he lost.
Yeah, Graham Arnold said in his post-game press conference that the reason he wanted to bring in an extra centre-back was because he just saw how much joy Korea was getting down the flanks, and he figured if they're going to keep coming down the flanks, I'm going to get more big bodies in the middle, and you can see the reasoning behind that. But I remember seeing when Burgess came on, I turned to my colleague Anna Harrington and says he has got to be sure that he's going to see this game out the 90 minutes. And to be fair, I mean, it wasn't Burgess that gave away the penalty, so it wasn't it wasn't his centre-back that brought him on, albeit that potentially that invitation to pressure, that continued allowance for the Koreans to maybe pin their ears back and I guess get down the flanks, because Australia wasn't really forcing Korea to pay much heed to any sort of defensive work there at the end, which I guess another thing Arnold talked about post-game. I did ask him in the post-game press conference, why did you make some of these subs? Why did you bring Nathaniel Atkinson off? Why did you bring Craig Goodwin off these blokes? And his answer, well, he actually did use the word cooked. His players were exhausted, which is potentially, surprising given that it was Korea that were coming in off the short length. But I guess if a player is cooked and they can't run anymore, and in the end, Australia are left to rue what might have been, and what might have been with a different approach.
Just on that late tactical switch, I did speak with the Korean midfielder Hwang In-beom after the game, and this is what he had to say on that and a couple of other topics. Congratulations on the progression. What's the feeling like?
I'm just really happy, and I need to say thanks to my teammates because they saved my life. So I'm really grateful to my teammates and all the staff for giving everything they have. And now I need to give them back what they need and what they showed me. So I'm really grateful and happy.
2 matches in a row now where you've almost the last minute of extra time. What is it about this Korean group and the team that you have, the mentality that you have?
I think all over the world, all the people, they know how strong they are as a Korean. I mean, mentally, physically, maybe they're Australian players, they're a little bit better than us, but mentally, we are really well prepared, and we show how ready we are as a team, how united we are as a team. So I'm really grateful to be a part of this great club, great team.
You're so close now, 2 matches away, of course, 64 years, so much history. Do you feel the pressure growing and growing?
Not really, because from the beginning we all talk to each other that we need to be ready for only one game. So I think there is not 2 games left, only 1 game left, which is against Jordan.
Sure.
We need to win this game, and then let's see what opponent we're gonna get in the final. But I think we need to be ready for this game, and because we saw already how strong they are as a team, and we also saw what kind of weakness point they have, what kind of weapon they have. So I think we need to be ready for this game.
Can I just ask you one last question? Late in the game, Australia switched formations, went to 5 defenders at the back. When you play against this kind of team, and can you sense the mentality was changing from Australia? And it gives you an opportunity to attack?
To be honest, during the game in the second half, especially in the beginning of the second half, we attacked quite well. I mean, there was a lot of spaces. I mean, in the half space, so we tried to attack that space, and we did quite well. But once we got there half, we needed to cross the ball as low as we can and as fast as we can, because obviously they're really strong and tall. But they defended really well. So when they changed with the 5 back, I think it was more. I think it was a better opportunity for us to have the ball, to have more possession, which we had more possession in their box. I think around the box, which we got the penalty from Sony. So it was a tough game, but I think both teams played really well, showed the characteristic and personality. But at the end, we got the result we wanted. And again, I'm really grateful to my teammates.
Congratulations, good luck.
Thank you so much.
It's back with Joey Lynch from ESPN. So, throwing things forward now from the Australian perspective. I mean, coming to the tournament as one of the kind of favourites to go right the way through, quarterfinal exit, disappointing. We were kind of questioning ourselves during the game. If Korea lost, is Klinsmann in trouble? We'll have to ask the question. Is Graham Arnold in trouble? Will Graham Arnold decide that maybe he's had enough of this whole gig and look for a club job? And we heard him also say that he expects a lot of the squad to move on as well. What kind of changes do you think, and where does this leave Australia? Bigger picture after what, in the end, quarterfinal exits, probably not the expectations that they had coming in.
I think if Graham Arnold was to move on from the Socceroos job, it would be because Graham Arnold has decided to move on from the Socceroos job. I cannot see a circumstance wherein Australia lose in extra time in the quarterfinals to South Korea, who, let's face it, are a very good chance to go on and win this thing now, and decides to sack Graham Arnold. They have just backed Graham Arnold significantly following the World Cup. They saw his run through to the round of 16 and pushing Argentina almost to extra time, and they brought him back on a new 4-year contract, which gave him reportedly gave him a raise, but also imbued him with significant influence over not just the Socceroos, but the entire men's national team program and in coaching, mentorship and the like. So Football Australia has sort of gone all in on Graham Arnold over this 4-year cycle. So I cannot see Football Australia and the decision makers there deciding to move on from Graham Arnold. And that's maybe one of the things that potentially in Australia we sort of lose track of the forest for the trees. Graham Arnold gets a lot of criticism in my mind, and you know, you can disagree. I disagree with a lot of his tactics. It's football, it's a game of opinions. Sure. He'd be happy to have that conversation. I think what gets lost in that Graham Arnold is coaching like Graham Arnold, and Graham Arnold's as a football coach was not a mystery when Graham Arnold was handed a new contract for this cycle. He wasn't a mystery when he was handed the contract in the first place in 2019. So in fact, he's just coaching the way that everybody expected him to. He's coaching the way that Football Australia expected him to. So if we are going to have a conversation around what we want from the national teams and how we want our sides to play, the focus lasering it on Graham Arnold and insulting him and doing all of this other stuff and calling him a terrorist, which don't do if you're on social media.
Someone called him a terrorist, really.
People call him on social media, call him a terrorist, a football terrorist a lot, which is really inappropriate and wrong, but you're missing the forest for the trees.
Especially where we are right now.
Yeah. But like Football Australia has brought this man in. We need to look at our decision-making process as an entire footballing country and what we value in our football.
That question about throwing things forward was one I also posed post-match to firstly Matty Ryan and then Jackson Irvine as well. Matty, you were so close. How much does that hurt?
Yeah, man, it's hard to find words, obviously, to describe the disappointment and the hurt. But yeah, life in football can be a bitch sometimes, pardon the French. But like I said, it's a real skill, an asset in these sorts of moments when you face adversity to, not curl up in a ball and think that the world has come down on you and all these types of things. It's important to acknowledge and recognise the lessons that we can use to learn and grow and become better as individuals and collectively, and moving forward, use the disappointment and the hurt to spur us on and motivate us for bigger and better things.
These big kind of games are often decided in moments. You guys had some chances, to almost bury the game, 3 or 4 of them, and then the one late on, they ultimately the moments, and then of course a world-class free kick. There's probably little you can do about that, but it was those moments that decided it.
Yeah, as you say, we mentioned that as a group at the beginning of the tournament, that moments are going to decide games, they're going to decide the outcomes, they're going to decide how special a memory this is going to be, whether it's going to be a lifelong memory through lifting the trophy and winning like we did in 2015 in Oz, or whether it's going to be something that we're going to have a shitty feeling of what if or what could have been, and unfortunately for us it's going to be the latter. And we just tried to make everyone aware at the beginning that as long as we can look ourselves in the mirror come the end of the day and know that we gave absolutely everything we can of ourselves, then as a bare minimum we can take some sort of peace in that. But ultimately we weren't good enough in enough moments to continue our journey in this competition, and we have to deal with that now and keep moving on.
I know it's not your call to make, but we spoke to a few of the Korean guys, and they said when they saw that you'd gone to a 5 at the back, they felt that the mentality had shifted and they had more time on the ball, more space on the ball, and you guys are dropping deeper and retreating. Did that have any impact on the way things played out?
I mean, it's obviously easy to say that now, looking at the outcome of the game. Their comments are obviously going to be justified because they went and won the game. If we found a way to hold on for a minute longer, we win the game, and everyone is, giving plaudits to us and how we played the game and all the tactics and all that. And that's the cat and mouse game. That's the games within a game. And unfortunately, it didn't go our way tonight. But we have full faith, and obviously everyone in here that we're all doing our best, and the coaching staff is doing their best to obviously give us the game plan and the tactics to get the job done, and us the players are doing our best to execute the game plan. And at the end of the day, like I said, maybe there's some peace in the fact that we did everything we can, and I'm sure every person can look at himself in the mirror and say that, you know.
Arnie said that, you know, there might be a few players from the squad moving on. I have to ask you, I'd not expect you're going to say, but have you given any thought about how much longer you might want to keep playing at this level?
Not at all. I want to play for as long as I can. As long as my mind and body is willing and able to, I'm going to go for as long as I can.
Commiserations. Jackson, can I just ask you, in terms of that late tactical switch when you kind of extra defender come on and you went to 5 at the back, mentally, how does that change things? I spoke to one of their midfielders and he said that they felt emboldened when that happened. They knew that the mentality had shifted from, well, they felt it shifted from Australia, and that gave them more space and time to play.
Yeah, I suppose everyone knows when you see a 6'5" centre back coming on that we're going to try and defend our box for the remainder of the game. And you know, the hard part is because, you know, if you do see it out, then you think, you know, like we did against Denmark. We went to a back 5 against Denmark for the last 5 minutes, and you see the game out, and you know, and then the hard part is then you're going into extra time, you know, with a kind of defensive mentality, so it becomes difficult. Yeah.
And the subs have been used as well, so there was no way back. For you personally, how has the tournament been? I mean, congratulations. I think you had a brilliant tournament. You got through a hell of a lot of running. You scored a couple of really important goals as well.
Yeah, it's tough to look at it individually at the moment. You know, you kind of ultimately at the back end of a tournament like this, you look at big picture in terms of your place within, you know, this team, and you know, I've tried to, you know, ultimately do what I do best for this team, which is, you know, try and be in important moments, be present, and try and get the best out of the players around me, give them a strong mentality and make the players feel secure in their game, knowing that, you know, that we've got someone out there with that experience. And yeah, I'm pleased, obviously, that, you know, that I played reasonably well in every game. I feel like I played okay, but you know, it's no consolation after tonight.
Just finally, bigger picture stuff. I mean, this is the kind of match that maybe in editions past would have been the final, could have been the final. Two strong nations playing at a very high level. Is it getting harder and harder to win these kind of tournaments with the standards that are constantly rising right across Asia?
Yeah, definitely. You can see that, you know, with ultimately, you know, how well Jordan have done.
Yeah.
You know, how Japan and Korea obviously didn't top their groups, which is, you know, huge, something you'd put bank on, you know, in tournaments gone by. And I think that's what hurts the most about tonight, is what opportunity that was for us, especially, you know, the more experienced players. Having been here 5 years ago, I had a similar feeling. You don't get many chances, and tonight really does feel like an opportunity lost.
Commiserations.
Thank you.
So wrapping things up back here with Joey Lynch, of course, earlier in the day, it's an absolutely fantastic story. It was kind of going to be whichever way it went. Tajikistan unfortunately going out with an own goal. Jordan 1-0 winners in that clash. Jordan now through to their first ever semi-final at an AFC Asian Cup. An absolutely wonderful story for a small nation, a nation that's obviously bordering Palestine and feeling the brunt of a lot of what's going on there as well. So great story.
I'll tell you who's a big fan of that story as well, Jurgen Klinsmann.
Oh,
because
really?
he pointed out in his post-game, our group was a bit more difficult than you all first thought, wasn't it? Because Jordan have got through to the semi-finals now as well. Right, yeah. And so, yeah, he's very excited about that. I think, well, Jordan, well, to be honest, Jordan might actually have a easier go of things against Korea than they did Tajikistan, given that, I mean, they had more of the ball against the Tajiks than they will against Korea, for one, and that suits them to a T, to be able to sit back on the counter. So, to be honest, they were probably happy to just see Australia or Korea in the semi-finals, weren't they? Because they can sit back and play on the counter. Should be a good game, but to be honest, the way that Son's played the past couple of games, it feels like he's going to take that trophy back to Korea, whether anybody else wants to let him or not.
Just quickly, let's have a brief look ahead to tomorrow's games. Uzbekistan and Qatar is the early match. Massive pressure on the host to keep going. How do you see that one going?
If there's going to be an upset, I think it's going to be that game. You'd have to think of all these quarterfinals. We've seen two today. Favourites progressing. If we're going to get an upset, I think it's going to be in that game. I think the Uzbeks have a chance, albeit Qatar should do the job.
I was going to ask you, you're saying an upset. I don't know what your reading is on Iran, Japan. Who's the favourite for you in that?
For me, the favourite is Japan.
Yeah.
Both because I think they just have better players. That's not to insult Iranian players. Iranian players are very good, but just you look
the
at the
Iranian
two
social
squads.
media crew will be coming for you. And that's
Well, but
probably
you look
not
at
something
Japan's players, and I like to think I'm as a neutral. You just feel like their ceilings are higher. But I think the big thing for me is the rest. They both played only a couple of days ago, but Japan did the job handily against Bahrain. Iran dogged Syria, took them to penalties. They were complaining this morning about less than 72 hours before kickoff in the new game. So, to be honest, I think that might be why Japan edges that as favourites.
No Mediterranean, of course, as well. A bit of a blow. Joey, great to catch up with you. Great to have you on the podcast, and look forward to doing it maybe a little bit later in the tournament as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No worries, and we will be back tomorrow to wrap up all the actions from the last couple of quarterfinals and look ahead to the semi-finals as well. But until then, it's bye for now.